Hi everyone, Leah here from EurekaCrystalBeads.com with another helpful beading video for you. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to go check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll always know when we're posting new content. Okay, so what I have for you here today is a fun design that I've come up with using chenille stitch along with some herringbone. We're calling it the Swarovski Crystal Gem Luxe Bracelet, and I think it's super fun. So I'm going to show it to you in a couple of different variations. So the first one that I made, I used 7 different colors and I blended them together. So we have this lovely blue to green to white to silver motif, which I think is a beautiful way to do it. It adds a lot of interest as it turns around your wrist. I think this is lovely springy colors. And the one I'm going to show you today, I chose to use 3mm Swarovski bicones in cyan to give it more of a gemmy look. I wanted it to really look like it was rubies sort of encrusted into silver or some precious metal going around your wrist. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've gotten the bulk of this done off camera, so that way I have the whole thing done, and later on I'll be able to show you how we finish it, but then I can start by showing you how it begins with the other side of the clasp for now. So to show you what we're going to be utilizing, I have 2 different sizes of a check seed bead. For once, I am not going Japanese. I am using these beautiful check seed beads in this amazing bright silver color. They're shiny, but some of them have this ever so slight satiny finish to them, which I think makes them absolutely stunning. We have a size 11 here, and we have a size 8 here. And in addition to those, we have 3mm Swarovski crystal bicones. Use any color or colors you want. I am using cyan to give it that lovely ruby look. As far as how many crystals you're going to need, this bracelet uses about 24 crystals per inch of the crystal section. So obviously that doesn't include the length that you get from the whole clasp area and this first part with the herringbone. So for every inch of the crystal portion, it's about 24 inches of crystals. My particular samples here have a crystal section that is about 5.5 inches long. So that ends up being about 132 bicones, which actually isn't too much considering the beauty of this bracelet, because you have a lot of that all spaced out with the much less expensive seed beads while still maintaining that beautiful, very luxe, expensive look. Okay, so I'm starting with a piece of 6-pound fire line on a size 12 needle. I'm using a fairly small amount simply because the part that I'm showing you to start isn't what is going to make my entire bracelet, because I already have the rest of my bracelet finished, but this is just so you can see how it was started. The amount of fire line you'll need for the whole thing, depending on the bracelet that you need to make, the average size bracelet is going to need about 2 full wingspans of fire line, and it's up to you whether you want to break that up into 2 pieces and have to add on halfway through, or whether you just want to deal with the full 2 wingspans and not have to add on. It honestly gets eaten up pretty fast, so it's really not too bad to work with it. This is definitely a nice one evening project. So the way I'm going to start is by picking up 4 of my size 11 seed beads. I'm going to go through the loop of my clasp. You can use whatever clasp you want. I'm using a tiara cast pewter toggle. And then I'm going to pick up the other 3. So you want a total of 7. If your seed beads are ones that can float through that loop, you can just pick up all 7 at once and it doesn't really matter. But in this case, they don't flow through the loop on the bar side. So I did pick up 4 and then 3, just like that. You're going to bring it to the end of your thread and leave a tail on that's a few inches long, something that you can throw a needle on later and weave in. And what you're going to do is go back through the size 11 seed bead that's closest to the end of that tail. And this one seed bead is going to join our seed beads together in a nice little loop for our clasp. Let me give you a little close-up here, just like that. Nice little loop. Now, for the time being, just to temporarily keep things together, we are going to take our tail and our working thread and we're going to tie them in a square knot. So if you're not familiar with a square knot, it's like a double knot, but that second knot is backwards. So right over left, then left over right. This is just going to temporarily hold this together. This knot is not what will be what holds this side of the bracelet together. It's purely temporary. Okay, now we're going to pick up some beads to get our herringbone started. I'm going to pick up a size 8 and 3 size 11s. Slide them all the way down to your beadwork. Just like this. There they are right there. Now we're going to go back down through the first of those size 11s as well as the size 8. And if your needle can finagle through it, you're going to start to go through all of the beads of your loop as well, starting with the one at the bottom that was right before the knot that we tied. Now, what we want to see when we pull these beads down, or when we pull our thread down, is I want to arrange my beads here, and sometimes you have to use your finger to pop them into place at first. You want to arrange your beads so they look like what I will call a tree, and I'll explain what I mean in a minute. So those 3 that are on top, we have the 2 that are on top here. I want you to imagine those as our left branch and our right branch. And then the seed bead that we went back down, the one that's centered right below them, that is what we're going to call our trunk. This visual analogy I find really helps people who are learning herringbone for the first time. So that's what I'll keep referring to them as. We have the trunk, and then we have the left branch and the right branch. So we just made our first little tree. Our goal is to have 3 little trees up here. So what I'm going to do is keep going around through my beaded loop. And it's okay if it starts to loosen up a little bit. As we go through it a few more times, it'll all tighten up nicely. And our goal is to come back up from that size 8 seed bead. So I'll show you that in just a second, once I can get back up there. There we go. Give it a nice good tug. It will tighten up that whole area nicely. So now we're coming up from the size 8 seed bead. We're going to make another little tree. So another little tree is going to be 3 of our size 11s. Slide them down to your beadwork. So there they are. And we're going to go back down through just the first one, and then down through the size 8, and then through the beads of our beaded loop. So we can form another tree. And again, as you might see, if you go to just pull them, they don't want to pull down into that little tree shape. You usually have to just pop them with your finger into place. And you can see that we have another little tree. You can see the other one. I'm going to turn it. The other one is just right on the other side of it. 2 little happy trees. All right, so I'm going to keep going through the loop of my clasp here, or the beaded loop that's going through my clasp. And then I'm going to head back out to that size 8, and I'm going to make 1 more tree. And I will see you back here in just a minute. Okay, I've gone ahead and made all 3 of my little trees there. So again, it was just picking up 3 seed beads, going back down through the first one, and then when you pull that tight, you'll get that little tree shape, even if you have to pop it with your finger a little bit. You go down the size 8 through the loop of seed beads going through our clasp, back up the size 8, and then you're ready to either continue with another tree if you still needed another one, or if this was your 3rd tree, then you're all done. So this is what we have here. You can see from the top, we have our 3 little trees. Each one has its right branch and its left branch. So you can see those 3 little pairs of beads. And then that's what they look like when you see them from this side. Remember, we have our right branch, our left branch, and our trunk. And that is an analogy that hopefully you will find helpful. So to continue with our herringbone, you're going to pick a tree, any tree, and you're going to go up into the tree's trunk and then left branch. So I'll give you a nice good close-up of this, don't worry. All right, so we've gone up into the trunk and then the left branch. Pull it all the way through. Now, if you are a lefty, you may want to pick the right branch and work clockwise. I'm a righty, so I pick the left branch and I work counterclockwise. That's just what I find to be most helpful. Okay, so now we're going to start in with our size 8. We won't need size 11 seed beads anymore until the very end of the bracelet when we repeat some of these steps again. So I'm going to pick up 2 of my size 8 seed beads, a little bigger, a little easier to work with. Another nice thing about this bracelet, you're using mostly larger size beads, so it's a little easier on the eyes. So we're coming up through the left branch here. Give you a nice good shot of that. Coming up through the left branch, we have our 2 beads. We're going down the right branch. Okay. Pull this all the way down. And the signature of herringbone is that your beads will sit at this nice little V. You can see that there. They sort of sit slightly angled in, right there. So we have just added on a new tier to that tree. Now we have to go up the left branch of the next tree over, so that way we can do the same thing there. Okay, so now we're coming out of, let's see, that's a good shot. We're coming out of the left branch of that tree. We're going to pick up 2 of our size 8 seed beads. And we're going to go down the left branch. Again, you might have to pop them into place a little bit. And that's what you get. So you can see the first one that we did, and then the second one that we did. So now we have to go up the left branch of the next tree. And this starts to sew your trees together as you're creating them, which is what starts that tube look, and what really helps to kind of keep things a bit more solid. You can see we're ready to pick up our 2 size 8s. We're going to go down the left branch. We're going up the left branch. We're going down the right branch. And again, you might have to pop them into place. And your trees might still be wanting to turn a little bit. Once we get past this row, they'll be a bit more situated in their tube position. Okay, so if you look from the top, we still have those same 3 little pairs of beads. We've just added a tier of size 8s to the top of them. So now, before we can start our next row, this stitch does have a step up. And a step up means that there's a little extra step that finishes up the row we're working on or the round we're working on, and it sets us up to then start the next row or the next round. And what the step up is with tubular herringbone is going through 1 additional bead before going up the left branch of the next tree. Now, the next tree that we're going to add a new layer on top of is going to be the first of the 3 that we do that to. So the step up is going through the bead below it as well. You can see that this can kind of like flare out a little bit more than it can over here because those are stitched shut. So this layer, this level, if you will, still needs its stitch holding it together and bringing it together. So you can see the step up is going through that new top left bead, that left branch, but it's also starting by going through the bead below it as well. That is the step up. So essentially, as you go around your tube, you're adding on those pairs of beads, but you're going up through 1, up through 1, up through 2, up through 1, up through 1, up through 2. And it's that up through 2 that finishes off your row. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add another tier of size 8s. So another pair of beads on top of each of the 3 trees. So right now, that's what we are set up to do. We are coming out of, there's a good shot right there. We're coming out of the top left branch of this first tree. We're going to pick up 2 size 8s. We're going to go down the right branch of the same tree. Okay. I have to pop them into place a little bit. You want them to sit in that lovely little V formation. So now we go up the left branch of the next tree, and that little stitch of thread in between the the two trees sort of holds them together and keeps them sewn into a tube. Just like that, pulls them right together. We do the same thing, up the left branch, pick up 2 beads, and down the right branch. Again, sometimes you'll still have to pop them into place a little bit. That's what we got. So these were the 2 beads that we just added. I just loosened them up a little bit so you can see me pull them down tight again. That's how they sit. So there was the first branch, second branch, and now we go up the left branch of the final tree. There we go, sews them together. Pick up those 2 beads we need, those 2 size 8s. Go down the right branch and pull them down into place. Pop them into place if you need to. Give them a little tug. Okay, so we have added on our tier, but you can see that this last part here, that where we are, it can sort of flay open a little bit more than it can on these other parts here. This part can sort of like spread apart open. That's because now we need to do our up through 2. That's reminding us that this level needs to be sewn shut. That's why we're going to go through the top 2 left branches of the next tree. So in this case, you can see the top one plus the one right below it that we went through first. And it's going to sew it right shut for us. You can see it just pulled it right together. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do one more level with my size 8s, and then I will show you how we will start the chenille stitch based off of this little starter piece of herringbone. So I'll be back in just a minute with that next tier already finished. Okay, so I finished my 3rd tier with the size 8s. You can see it, we look at it from the side. There's 3 levels of size 8s, 3 levels of branches, and you can see how it looks from the top. We have this little tube, sort of a triangular tube, each with 3 different sides there. So now we're going to start the chenille stitch. And if you've never done chenille stitch before, it's a really wonderful way to get a tube that has a lot of structure to it. So unlike unlike tubular netting, which it looks very similar to, tubular netting can flatten out very easily. Chenille stitch stays very, very stiff, which is really wonderful for this type of bracelet. It really makes you feel like you're wearing something substantial. So super easy to start. Instead of picking up 2 beads and going down the right branch, all we're going to do is pick up a crystal. So we're coming up from the left branch, we're picking up a crystal, we're going down the left branch, going down the right branch. Up from one branch, down the other branch. Head right up into the left branch of the next tree. Pull it up, just as if we were doing the herringbone. That's how you're still moving from tree to tree right now in the very similar manner. Pick up a crystal, we're coming up from the left branch. We're going down the right branch. And that's just going to pull our crystal nicely into place. Just like that. You can see how it sits right on top in between the 2 beads in that little V section. Okay, one more time. Get our crystal in there. We were coming up from the left branch, picked up a crystal, going down the right branch. And just like before with the herringbone, even though we're not doing herringbone anymore, we still are going to have a step up. So the step up is going to be going through that size 8 right there, that's right at the top, and then the crystal as well. So the crystal sort of is in place of the new level of branches that we were normally adding with the herringbone. And that first bead we went through, that was the bead from the previous row, just like normal step up. And now we're going through that crystal. Okay. Now, this is what the first row of chenille stitch looks like, which is just nesting in 1, 2, 3 crystals. That's it. We will keep doing this every other round. Now, the other round that we'll do in between is going to be picking up 2 of our size 8s and heading right into the next crystal. and you'll see where they're going to sit right there. That's where they're going to sit. I'm going to do that again. Pick up 2 of my size 8s, go through the next crystal there. And I just keep turning it in my fingers. That's how I find it easiest to work with it. 2 more size 8s, go through the last crystal, which was the crystal we started off by coming out of this row. That's what you get. Okay. Now the step up in this case is to go through the first size 8 in the first little section of 2 that we added. That is our step up. Because now we're ready to do our crystal row again. So we are picking up a crystal, and just like with the herringbone, how we were coming up from a branch and going down a branch, that's sort of what we're going to create here. We have our crystal on our needle. We're coming up through that pair of beads, the left side of that pair of beads, and going down the right side of that pair of beads. And then you're going to skip right over the crystal that's there from the previous row. You're going to go right into the left bead of the next little section that we had just added in the previous row. And you're going to see that little stitch of thread right here. It pulls everything right in tight together, sort of cinches it in. That's what helps to create the stiffness of chenille stitch, of a chenille stitch tube. So we're coming up from the left side of this little section of 2 beads. Have our crystal, we're going down the right side. I'm going to do that one more time. Skipping over the crystal that's there from the previous row and going right up through the left bead of that next little section of 2 beads. Picking up one more crystal there and going down the right side. And they just nest right in. This is what we look like from the top. You can see our chenille stitch starting. So I'm going to show you a little bit quicker now, repeating these rows. We are now at the part where we're going to be doing our step up, and that step up is going to be through the little size 8 and then the crystal that we had first started with at the beginning of this row. 2 more size 8s, go through the crystal. 2 more size 8s, go through the crystal. 2 more size 8s, go through the crystal. And then the step up is going through the first of the 2 size 8s of the first section we added this row. Then we do our crystal row. We pick up 1 crystal, coming up from, here we go, up from the left side, we're going down the right side, up the left side of the next little duo here. I guess we can also call them trees. They're in the same little spots as the trees back when we were doing the herringbone down here. So we're coming up from the left branch, picking up our crystal, going down through the right branch. Pulls it right into place. Just keep turning your work in your hands. Up through the left branch, pick up your crystal, and down the right branch. Crystal will sit right there on the top of it, right there in between those 2 beads. So again, one last time before I show you the end of the bracelet, our step up here is going through the size 8 and the crystal. We sort of skip right over that crystal that's sitting just a little bit lower because that's from the previous row. And then we're ready to nest in our sets of 2 size 8s again, in between all of the crystals. So that's how it rolls, folks. You just keep repeating those 2 rows. Crystal, 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 double 8, double 8, double 8. And you can see that herringbone starting to show. Everything sort of sits in these little X patterns. Now that you've seen how to start the bracelet, I have my almost completed bracelet here. And as you can see, it just looks so gorgeous and sparkly. You can see all of those crystals just glinting there. And it really just does look like rubies are just kind of encrusting all around your wrist, just beautifully. So I have finished after doing about 5.5 inches of the crystal section. Obviously, this could vary wrist to wrist depending on how long you need it. And I've ended with my row of the 2 size 8s. So not your crystal row. You're going to end by having just put in your last little group of 2 and you've done your step up. So you're coming out of the first size 8 that you put in that row. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start to do the same herringbone that we have on the first side down here. And I really think this is just such a nice finished look for this bracelet. So as with herringbone, we're going to pick up 2 size 8s. We're coming up the left branch. We're going down the right branch. Again, sometimes you might have to pop them into place a little bit. Just like that. Going up the next branch. And then we're going to go down the right branch. And it just, as you can see, it just pulled them right into place. Going up the next branch, oop, dropping my needle. Going up the left branch. Picking up my 2 size 8s. Going down the right branch. And then doing my step up, which is the next tree over, the top left branch, but also the bead below it. That's our step up, just like before. So I'm going to go around one more time and I will see you back here in a second, because remember, we want to have 3 rows, just like on this side. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I have my 3 rows of herringbone at the top. Or actually, it looks like 3 rows of herringbone, but it's 2 rows of herringbone. And the first row was simply that last row with size 8s from our chenille stitch. But it essentially gives it that look of 3 rows of size 8s with herringbone. So I've just done my step up, so I'm all ready to keep going. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more round, but with my size 11s. We're going to start to taper down. So again, up the left branch, down the right branch. Up the left branch of the next tree, 2 more beads, down the right branch, 2 more beads, and then our step up, which is, we want to be coming out of that little 11 right there at the top, but we want to go through the bead below it, which does happen to be a size 8, so we're going through an 8 and an 11. The top 8 that you had there plus the 11 on top of it. So we're starting to taper down. Now what we're going to do is the part that's going to start to pull this all together and then add on our clasp. So what we want is these 3 little flaps here, if you will, to come together, each topped with 1 single 11 that's going to then pull together for the size 8 that we had right there. So I'm going to pick up a single size 11. I'm going to pick up a size 8. And now I need to pick up 7 seed beads. But because the loop on this side of the toggle won't allow the seed beads to float through it, we have to pick up the 7 first in 4 and then in 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Go through the loop of the clasp. And then pick up the other 3. So we have our total of 7, 4, and then 3. Now we're going to go back down through that first 11 that was part of the 7, because remember, that's where our loop will sort of nicely join together. Then we're also going to go back down through the size 8. There we go. And then also that first size 11. Okay. And then before we pull everything tight, we can also go back down through the size 11 in the top of our herringbone. That's actually going to be the right branch of that tree. And I'll give you a better look at it once we get it pulled down. Okay, so now you can see how we've topped that tree with a nice little single seed bead right there, and it finishes it off. Now we're going to go up the top left branch of the next tree, which is just the next size 11 over. And this one is also going to get that single size 11, but we don't have to pick up the 8 and then the 7 seed beads because we're going to use the 8 and the 7 seed beads that are already there. So now I'm going to go up through the 8 and go through all of those beads. And you're going to see how the size 11 is going to get pulled down. See how it starts to center? Just like that. We're going to go through all of the loops, or all of the beads of this loop. And it's okay, just like before at the beginning, if it looks a little loose, it'll tighten up. So now we're going to go down all the beads until we're coming out of that new single 11 that we added. And we're going to go down the right branch. I know you're sort of seeing it upside down. So now I'm going to turn it so it actually is the right branch that sits on the right side. Hopefully that's a little more clear. I'm going to pull it down slowly so you can see everything coming together. You can see it pulls it right in line. That single seed bead is now sitting centered atop of the 2 branches of that tree. And we're going to do it one more time. Go up the left branch of the final tree. Give it a nice good tug tight. Start to get this pulled a little tighter here. We pick up that single size 11. We go up the size 8 and the loop of beads that are already there. I'm going to pull this slow so you can see it start to pull into line there. Looks a little loose, that's okay. We haven't gone back through it yet. Let's get through that beaded loop. Go back down through the single size 11 and then down through that other branch. And again, now I'm going to turn it this way. There we go. I want to get nice focus for you. It pulls it all into place. And then lastly, we have to do our last step up, which is just to go through that branch of the very first tree we started with. It pulls it in together. So now we just have to catch our needle underneath the stitches of thread where we are and form some overhand knots. So just right where your thread is coming out of your beadwork, there'll be a little stitch of thread there from the previous round. Pull almost all the way through, you get your little loop. Pull your loop shut, and that is how you make your overhand knot. And you want to make sure that you do a few more of these knots traveling in between each one. So I'm just going to travel a little bit further away. I'm going to catch my needle underneath there, around a stitch of thread that's in between the beads, and then go through that loop. And just close your loop carefully, making sure you're closing it, not or catching it around any of the other beads. So again, just a few more knots and then you're good to go. Okay, so after weaving out my final thread, I also added a needle to the tail from the beginning and wove that out as well. And I just really love how finished the ends look using the herringbone and then having it switch into the chenille stitch and having it decrease down here and with all silver. It just has a lovely higher end look to it. And with that beautiful sparkle, you can just see that absolutely glinting. And if you can imagine that under the sunlight or beautiful lights while you're out having a lovely dinner out, it would look stunning. So again, we have those 2 color schemes here. One that had the 7 different colors shifting into the necks, that sort of blue to silver that I think was a lot of fun. And then we have the more gemmy look. Now, I used cyan, like I said, to sort of have it look like rubies, but you could use sapphire or even Montana blue, which is a bit closer to an actual sapphire color. But you could use a lovely deep blue for a sapphire color. You could use emerald for that beautiful emerald look. Swarovski definitely offers a lot of lovely colors that can replace those birthstone looks, those beautiful high-end gems. And you can really get this to have a beautiful gemmy look to it, like something you'd buy in a higher end jewelry store. Or you can have a whole lot of fun with it, like I did here, and you can use the super fun, blingy double AB crystals, which certainly adds so much fun to this and definitely makes it a beautiful, fun summer bracelet. Okay, folks, that wraps it up. Thanks for watching. Make sure to visit us on over at eurekacrystalbeads.com for all the materials used in this video, and we will link them to you below as well in the description box. And hopefully we can satisfy all of your other beading and jewelry needs as well. Bye-bye.